Welcome back to Stop the Clock with Brad. Boy, do we need to talk about how much beef costs these days. Holy cow, literally. So, I was in the Dominican Republic last week, in Turkey 2 months ago, and of course, I live in America, and it's expensive everywhere you go. Here is the price of a per pound of a ribeye at my local grocery store from last week, and here's the price of chicken. That's why I'm doing this video. One thing about beef and chicken is chicken's available worldwide in every country. It takes 6 to 8 weeks for a chicken to grow up. It takes 10 to 12 to 14 months for a cow to grow up and be sent to market. That's incredibly long. We're going to talk about why beef is so expensive right now, and then talk about is chicken is it a good substitute for beef, especially for longevity and on the carnivore diet? So let's first talk about why beef is so expensive. One, the drought. There's been a drought across the U.S., especially in the Midwest. Look at this. And so when feed prices go up, it does a few things. It drives up the price of cattle because they're paying more for feed, and it causes farmers to rush the cows to market. They're going to sell them when they weigh less, i.e., will get less meat from that cow, or they're going to choose to sell cows they would usually breed. And so that's going to cull the herd even more down the road and keep these prices high. Those are some of the big reasons why it's expensive. Other things that aren't nature, it's political, tariffs. Countries like Brazil, they're one of the big importers of beef to the U.S. They've been importing more and more every year, but now there's tariffs on Brazil. That's making that beef cost more. And commodities like beef, meat, it's no different than gas. What happens when we have gas at one point? Someone just threatens a war in the Middle East. They just whisper something about a war in the Middle East. You know what happens? The price of oil goes up, our gas goes up the next day. They've got tons of gas in reserve that we could buy at the old price, but they still raise the prices. That's what's happening with beef, the exact same thing. If someone talks about a tariff, they're going to raise the price and we're going to pay more. But what can we do about it? Well, chicken. Chicken is much cheaper, as we just saw. So let's look at the nutritional value, because that's why we're here. We want to know what's healthier for us. Let's look at the nutritional value of chicken versus beef. And here's the first one. If you see 1 pound of beef versus 1 pound of chicken, beef is about 25% more calories than the chicken. The fat overall in the beef is 85 grams versus 50 grams for the chicken, so higher in fat. There's more protein, 115 grams in the beef versus 106 in the chicken. So let's talk about that right away. If you're on the carnivore diet, if you're on the keto diet, you need that fat for your energy. That's what you run on. So you see that the beef overall is a higher fat cut of meat. Now we know with chickens, if we just go for the thighs or the legs, the dark meat, we'll get more fat that way. So this is the overall bird. But if you take, say, a ribeye versus a thigh, they'll be pretty equal. Just like if you take a sirloin versus a breast, those are also going to be lean. So you can kind of look at the fat, you can partial that out yourself. The vitamins and minerals, beef's 4 times higher in calcium, much higher in iron, 10 milligrams versus 4.2. Chicken's a little higher in magnesium, much higher in potassium, much higher in B1 with chicken, slightly higher in B2 with chicken. Niacin is about the same. Vitamin B6 is about the same. Folate's higher in beef. Vitamin B12, 13 grams versus 2.3. Vitamin E, vitamin K, trace amounts, not a lot. So you look at the vitamins and minerals, they're not that big a deal in the two meats. So for me personally, that would not be a deal breaker saying, oh, well, I've got to eat beef versus chicken for my health. No, I can probably do either one of those. I can supplement, again, organ meat hasn't been affected like, say, steak and ground beef. So I can still eat my liver and heart. Those haven't really gone up. They might, but they haven't yet. And so I can still supplement that way and still eat chicken with this. The big telltale between the two is what comes next, omega-6 versus omega-3. So if you look at this chart, you look at grain-fed beef, grass-fed, ribeye, just when you buy a normal one from a store, all of those are low on the ratio scale. But then you get into chicken, chicken breast skinless, chicken breast natural, chicken thigh skinless. They're all high. Only a pork chop is higher than those. And why do we care? Why do we care about omega-6? We've talked about it before. Omega-6 is in almost everything we do. It's in processed food, it's in chicken, it's in pork in high levels. And so if you look like my daughter, she's 14. She doesn't want to eat the carnivore diet. She wants to be a 14-year-old. So she loves chicken nuggets. She loves these fast food chicken fingers. I think she's going to turn into a chicken. And so her body's full of omega-6, full of omega-6. And we're starting to see problems there. Why? High level of omega-6s cause inflammation. And inflammation is just bad for us, especially long-term inflammation. I've talked about it before. When I was eating the more standard American diet, I had such bad inflammation in like my shoulders, elbow, that I could barely train. I couldn't press, bench, anything. And so if we hurt so bad that we can't go to the gym and then we can't do resistance training, now we're losing one of our best weapons against dying, one of the best things to help keep us strong and healthy as we age. And so when I look at this with omega-6, this is a big strike against chicken with me for my longevity. Then here's the second thing that's a big strike with me against chicken, foodborne illness. Poultry was linked to 19% of all foodborne illness deaths. That's higher than anything out there. Beef and chicken together for illness last year were 21%. Chicken was 19%. We know with chicken and salmonella, and I'm the same way. You cook chicken, any chicken juice gets anywhere, you're going to clean that up as fast as you can. You don't want that sitting around. We've seen the reports about how many packages of chicken just sitting on the shelf are infected with salmonella. We don't have the people we need to inspect these facilities, so it gets out. Well, with beef and E. coli, we know, wash your hands, but if you heat beef up, let's say you do a sear, as soon as you sear that beef on each side, it's going to kill that E. coli. And so that's one thing that scares me more about chicken is there's just more deaths eating chicken. It's not huge, but it's way more than beef. And so that's one thing that bothers me. What can we do if we want to be healthy, be on the carnivore diet, and eat beef? Well, there's a few things. This is what I do. One, you look for sales. Anytime ground beef goes on sale, I guess, especially like grass finished or grass fed ground beef, I buy as much as my freezer will hold. If you can, invest in a freezer. I just have a meat freezer, and that's what we do. When ribeyes, any kind of great cut of steak goes on sale at any market where I live, we have one of those food saver machines I got at Costco. I buy it and open them all up, seal them all up, date them, put them in the freezer in the house, and put the rest in the basement. If you've got something like a Costco, a Sam's Club, or anything like that where you live, where you can buy in bulk, as of a month ago, the Costco whole ribeye was still only $13.99 a pound. And so at that point, I believe my local supermarket was $20.99 a pound, and I could get that for $13.99 a pound. Again, not as cheap as a piece of chicken, but when I think about the health implications, it's worth it for me, especially somebody that only eats 1 or 2 meals a day. That's what's really helps. And so we've got to be a little creative right now with how we buy our beef. But again, is eating chicken here and there going to be bad for you? No. Remember, we just want to keep those omega-3s and omega-6s balanced. So 1 to 1. Could you do that by eating some sardines? Absolutely. I'll do that. If I eat chicken, I try to eat sardines the next couple of days to keep myself balanced. Sometimes I don't, you get busy in life, but I'm pretty happy where my inflammation levels are and how I feel. And that's how I can tell. You can tell if your inflammation levels are higher just by how your joints feel, especially as you age. I don't need a doctor to tell me if my inflammation's high. I can tell it myself. So tell me what you think. Where you live, are you eating more chicken, beef? What is it? Because where I am, price-wise, chicken's the clear winner, but for health and me personally, it's still beef. Thanks.